Ciao, jewelry making friends. My name is Joey Balestrieri. Welcome to my work table. I'm so glad that you're here. I am so excited to be doing my third project with this month's Potomac Beads Treasure Box edition, and it was entitled Spun Sugar Serenade. So I've done an unboxing and I did a bracelet in my unboxing video. That was this one, which is a mixed media boho. I pulled a little porcelain bracelet bar connector from my stash, but these Athena cast butterflies that were in the box were just gorgeous, and we got check glass and these beautiful elongated bicones in a peridot color. And I just did a mixed media bracelet, made my own little hook clasp. It's hidden there in all my dangles, and I just love it. I've been wearing it. And then I also did this beautiful necklace with the second butterfly that was in our box, and this necklace is quite long, but it is just a beautiful box. It is talking about pastel colors of spring, cotton candy, the simple days of a carnival. I love the description and I loved the color palette in this box. So I started to put the beads away, but there were a couple of things in the box that just would not let me put them away. And one of them was this lucite flower mix, these roses. They're very unusual in that their drill hole goes across the back horizontally, and they were just intriguing me. And then I absolutely loved these little round duo beads in the white lila luster. And also, I'm reading from the package because I had a little issue with my insert, but these are called Bibo 2-hole beads, and they were in an opaque lavender, and that is these little guys right here. And so they were just intriguing me. I also really love the Tea Rose 80 seed beads that came in the box. I didn't even see how beautiful they were while they were in the tube, but when I took them out and started working with them, it's a Duracoat color and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's an opaque color and it's super shiny, and the color is really rich for a pastel color, and I just love it. So anyway, I started to design with these elements because they were intriguing me. And one of the things that I always say is how powerful seed beads are in design, and how I think sometimes people that are not bead weavers and do not like long bead woven projects will overlook the power of seed beads. And I think that is also true of these 2-hole beads. A lot of us would look at that and think only if you're a bead weaver could you make use of that in your design. And so I set out, I challenged myself, and I had these cylinder beads, which are acrylic. I have had them for years in my stash. And although I don't work a lot with acrylic beads, these don't even look acrylic. They are so beautiful. So you could substitute any kind of a long cylinder bead that you have that will accommodate two strands of the 7-strand, and we got that in the box. So what I did is I was just playing with these elements, and I finally worked out a design. And I didn't even mean to get this far in my design, but I did. So I stopped and I said, let me share this with everybody because it's really fun, and what I have is making me really happy. So in this month's box, we got a little spool of the nylon coated stainless steel 7-strand beading wire, and it is very flexible. So a lot of beading wire that is 7-strand will be really rigid, but this one is pretty flexible. I really like it. To start off with is show you how I embellished these little lucite roses. Can you see the little sparkle that's in there? So this is something else that I have in my stash. I am constantly scouring the clearance racks of the craft stores, or really even if I go to a bead shop. And so these are Austrian crystals with 13 facets, and they were normally $8, but I picked them up for $3, and I just love them. They are another small but mighty thing in jewelry design. So can you see what it does to the middle of a little lucite flower? So I'm going to just do the last one with you, and while it dries, I'll get started with the stringing. So I'm using the Loctite super glue. This is the Ultra Control Gel. I love the precision tip on this, and because it's gel, it doesn't dry immediately. So it gives you a little bit of time to make sure things are in the place that you want them to be secure in. So I left this laying on my mat. In fact, I can zoom in a little bit. I left this laying on my mat and just got a little dot of the glue coming out, just a tiny, ever so little bit, and just put it right in the middle of that lucite flower. I love this glue. It is fabulous, and it is not messy, and it doesn't get all over your fingers and your work mat. And I use my pliers as a tweezer and just pick up that crystal and just set it right in that dot of glue. And like I said, you have a little bit of time to position, put a little pressure on the top, and that is that simple. And look what that does to those little flowers. And so the next thing, while that's drying, it takes a few minutes to dry, but we'll be able to touch those. I only need a 7-inch bracelet length, but I took 14 inches of the 7-strand wire that came in the box. And the reason I did that is because I'm going to double it, and I don't want to struggle at the end getting my clasp on. So the first thing I'm going to do is take about 15 of these seed beads and string them down to the middle. I like odd numbers. 15. So if you need a shorter bracelet or a longer bracelet, this is one place where you could play with your length a little bit in this design. Let me zoom back out. And then I'm going to match up those two ends. And the next thing I'm going to do is take one of these duo beads. These are so cool. I have my wires a little bit out of control right now, but let me try to thread this on so you can see what it does. It has 4 holes in this little tiny bead, and that is just awesome for separating 2 strands. So I'm going to bring that right down to my seed bead loop, and it looks like that. Now, I have something else from my stash to share with you. At this point, I'm going to pull off what I have on this little strand here, and restring it on camera so that you can see exactly how I came up with this pattern. So I just wanted to show you this. Let me give you one more look, and then I'll pause the camera and let that last little crystal dry and unstring this so that I can string it together with you. So there's one more look at where we're going. And the thing I was going to show you that I had in my stash, and I'll give you an alternative to it, is these double bead caps. So they look like this, and it is just so cool to me. I like when it's in the design how I see this. It just is a nice separation for the bead, and it's just a double bead cap. If you don't have these, you can create the same look with 2 regular bead caps back to back. But I can link these below if I can find them again on the website that I got them from, but I'll try to link these below if I can. So let me pause the camera and unstring what I've done here, and I'll be right back and we'll put it together quickly together. Okay, I am ready to string with you. So we have the seed beads and one of those duo beads, and the next thing I'm going to do is take both of my wires through this double bead cap and my little duo bead just sits beautifully in there. And then my little acrylic embossed bead, I think these are fabulous. I, usually would turn my nose up at acrylic beads or think it's for children's jewelry, but I have saved these for years because I think they are stunning. But I bet if you go into your stash and look for any kind of a long cylinder bead, you could create the same look. And then look how perfectly that little bead cap sits right on the end. And then next up is another double bead cap. And then I have in my strand of crystals, it was a mix of colors that came in this month's box. I had only 3 of these peachy tone ones. So I pulled those out, and all 3 of those are making their way into this bracelet. And then that's what we have. Look how gorgeous that is already. It is just happiness on a wire. Okay, so here's where there is a little bit, I worked this out off camera. I'm going to take one of those tea rose seed beads and feed it on to both wires and bring that down to the crystal. And then I'm going to start with one of the light pink roses, and again, both wires go through the back. And what I'm doing here, let me show you. Let me get it down here and I'll show you. These are there are 3 petals on the outside of the rose. So one is going to hang over my stringing wire, and this one here is got the little space in between the 2 petals. So I'm going to string that one in that direction. And then what I discovered is that 3 seed beads was the perfect spacer in between this flower and the next flower. So I'm threading 3 seed beads on both wires and bringing that down to the flower. And so that's what we have, and I'll show you what it looks like on the back. And so my next flower is going to be the purple one, and put it in the same direction where the 2 petals that have the space will then go in first, both wires going in the hole. And that is going to snuggle up nicely to the bead that I just strung on. See how this one, the odd number, is sitting in between the 2 petals. And then again, 3 more of the tea rose seed beads is the perfect space between those little roses. And then my last little flower, I'm going to do the same thing. The little space between the 2 petals is snuggled up to the flower that it's sitting next to. And then it only took 1 of the seed beads, again on both strands, and another crystal. Both strands fit through that. And then another double bead cap, and then another one of my little 2 beads. And I mean, can you even imagine how perfect those colors are? Can you see how perfect the tea rose is in the seed beads with this little bead? I mean, this is why I could not put these beads away and forget about it, because I kept looking at it on my work table and I had to do something with them. Okay, another bead cap, and then another one of those duos. Now here I do want to make sure, because I've gathered up my wires to come through the bead cap, I want to separate them and lay everything out on my bracelet and make sure that it's not twisted. So like down here, my seed beads are turning, so I want to like make sure, because at the end of my stringing, I will be crimping. I also thought about, I made one of my little hooks, which I did that in my last video. I can link this bracelet video below because I showed exactly how to do that in that video, and I made another one very quickly, so I haven't worked out exactly how I'm going to close this off, but those are the things that are in my head. So I'm going to thread this little bead right down. And have it just snuggle right inside that bead cap. And I just love how that keeps the wires separated and nice and neat. And then I'm going to separate the wires and do 3 seed beads on one wire and 3 on the other. And then I just felt like I needed to add in a little bit of purple because I have that one purple flower, but I also love the way these little 2-hole, what are they called? Is it Bibo or Bibo? I want to say Bibo. It sounds so cute. But yeah, I just love the way that they fit in between the seed beads and the round duos. I just think they are gorgeous. So I wanted them to have a little presence, so I stacked 5 of them. Again, I liked my patterns to be in odd numbers as much as I can. Doesn't always work, but for me it's a general rule when I'm creating patterns. Isn't that so pretty? I mean, you can barely tell what it is. It's so pretty. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to one of those duo beads. There was just something beautiful about the way that they fit on top of everything. Beautiful. And then I'm going to separate the wires again just to put a seed bead on each side. And the reason I did that is the seed bead made a really nice little spacer to transition both wires again back into one little silver flower. I've used this little silver flower spacer from my stash in my other projects with this box, so I thought, why not keep it consistent? And a little odd flower in a spring design is just beautiful. So that's what we have so far. And then my third crystal that I had in the box is going to be the end of this little bracelet. And now let me just quickly check my length. I love making patterns, so I am notorious for getting my bracelets very long. Oh my goodness, I think I have it perfect. And so what I'm going to do is take a number 2 crimp tube and put both of my wires through that crimp tube and let it come all the way down to that crystal bead. Now here, normally we would, curve our bracelet or necklace before we crimp so that we would not have rigidity, and I'm debating if I want to do it that way or push it super, super, super tight and make it like a bangle. I am debating. I was thinking about it while I was playing with these beads. And I don't know, I have my length so good. I think I'm going to do it the normal way. But that's a little bit of what's in my head when I'm designing. And the other reason I was pushing it so tight is to keep the little roses on the top of the bracelet. But I think it will sit nicely on the arm. So let me just move this all down and get this in a nice little curve. And now what I'm going to do, since this is only 7 strand and I want to use my magical crimping plier, I am going to feed at least one of these back through the tube. And since it's 7 strands, see, it is coming right through the flower. I can probably fit this one as well. And what I've discovered about the magical crimping plier is that if there's no empty space in your crimp tube, you get a really good crimp bead there. And so look how easily those fit. So if I was going to try to use my magical crimping plier, on this with just one loop, I probably would not get a good crimp. And so sometimes when that's the case, I will even do a dummy wire, like just cut a little scrap of wire and just put it in that crimp tube to take up space. I don't need to do that today because I got this in there, and I love how it went back down through my first couple of beads, because for me it just looks better when I trim away my end wires down here and not up here where the clasp is going to be. And this spacer bead has a really large hole, so when I trim that, they're just going to disappear. So I quite like the way that worked itself out. I'm just going to move everything down, and let me get a hold of this with my pliers. Move everything down, get it in a good position before I crimp. And I'm going to attach my little hook that I made with a jump ring, because that way if anything needs to be changed on the clasp, I don't have to cut this and restring it. I can just open the jump ring. So when you have this many wires going through, if you want to tighten, you might want to do them one at a time. Let's see how I did. That looks pretty good. And let me just bend it a little bit. I actually thought about making this rigid because of these beads and also because of those flowers sitting up on the wrist, but it's turned out really, really pretty this way. And I think when my hook is on, it's going to have a little bit of a bangle look, but I quite like it. Just going to make sure everything is the proper space, no gaps, nothing bulging. I am quite happy with that. And let me get my magical crimping plier in here. If you've never seen this before, it's a little bit unusual. It doesn't have all the wells or all the grooves that a normal crimping plier has. It only has one little hole in the middle, and what it does is it turns this little tube into a bead. So you don't have to worry about your wires crossing or any of that like you do with a regular crimper, but you do have to take your time and make sure that your crimp tube is situated right in the middle of the plier. And it looks like I have it, and I'm just going to close it all the way. And when I take that away, you can see that the four corners of that tube have been pinched like a little ravioli. And now I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and just find that little center spot and fit it back in that well and close it. And then you just go around, keep going around until you don't feel any resistance, until you feel like it's doing nothing. And when you take that away, you have this perfect little silver bead. It's so beautiful. Now, because I had 4 strands going through, my little loops got a little bit in opposite direction, but you can take your pliers, because there's a nylon coating on that wire, and just kind of smooth it out and get them going in the right direction. And then I can come under this little flower spacer bead with such a big hole and trim that really, really close, and that is beautiful. Now I just need a jump ring. Let me get one. I make my own jump rings out of the same wire that I make my hooks out of, and I keep them in a little small bag in with the wire, so I know exactly what these jump rings are made out of, and they're in there instead of my other supplies, so I know that these are the ones that I made, and I know they're out of 20 gauge wire with the non-tarnish coating on it. And then it is as simple. As I said, if you want to see how I do these little hooks, they take like 1.5 inches of wire, not much at all, and they're really fast to make, and you don't have to hammer and texture it, but I like the way it looks, so that's what I do. And this quick and easy, and this is like truly happy like a carnival, this bracelet. And I mean, fun, It was really just pattern play and a little bit of embellishment, and this sweet, beautiful little bracelet is complete. Those are like the happiest colors, and they really are the colors of candy. I just love it. I love the way this turned out. Let me put my little hook in the little hook that I made goes into the seed bead loop, and that little bracelet, my little carnival candy bracelet, is done. Look at that. It's so pretty. I sometimes will go in and add another jump ring if I don't like the way my hook is landing, or like this, I don't like the way this is sitting up. So the other thing that I can do is, even though this is work hardened, I can take 2 pliers and just twist my hook. So let me get my other pliers, and let me just take that hook and go this way with it. And that is the beauty of a scrolly little hook that you made yourself. That is the sweetest little bracelet. I absolutely love the way that turned out. The last thing that I will do on a piece like this is my lovely permalac coating that comes from Potomac beads. It's a clear protective coating, and when I use anything like these bead caps that are just base metal, or this little flower spacer, I even brush it over my own handmade clasps because I've hammered that, and it's just, I just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 little areas here to brush that coating over. And so I'll just take like a scrap piece of plastic from my trash bin so that I don't damage my mat. And can you see how thin this is? It dries very quickly, and you don't even really have to be as precise as polishing your nails. You just brush it on a nice light coating and it dries completely clear. So in my experience, if I have touched my bead a tiny bit with the brush, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't show, it doesn't make a milky film on it or anything. It's just that easy. And so I always take a few minutes when I am finished doing a project and just go around to any of these base metal fashion jewelry findings that I have used and put that little clear coating. It takes a few minutes. I let it dry 10-15 minutes, or go on to something else and just get the little edges. And I do that on all of my pieces when I'm finished. I don't always show it in my videos, but it just is something that adds quality to my work and longevity, whether I sell a piece, gift a piece, or keep it for myself. I don't look at it a few months down the road and say, oh my goodness, all the silver is black. Especially silver tarnishes very easily, especially in Florida. It's very humid here, and our skin is moist. We wear a lot of sunscreen, and so this is just something that, without spending on very expensive, you know, for a bracelet like this, I don't know that I would want to invest in sterling silver findings. You know, it's fun. I use some beautiful acrylic beads, some seed beads. It's not an expensive piece, a beautiful piece and a fun piece, but it doesn't warrant a super high quality metal. So this inexpensive little brush on coating does the trick for me. This quick and easy little carnival candy project is done. I'll let this dry for a few minutes and take some pictures and put them up at the end of the video. I was wearing my little bracelet and I thought to myself, I didn't put a little dangle or a little charm on it, and it just calls for it. So I went into my stash and look what I found. I have this beautiful little fluffy flower charm, and look how beautifully it matches one of my beads and matches those flower beads. So the only problem with it is it's in a gold and it's a bit tarnished. But I keep these little bead caps in my supplies. I keep them in gold and silver, and whenever I see them, I love these because they're very soft metal and you can open them up. You can do things with them. So I also have a little scrap piece of the wire that I used to make this clasp, and I am going to do a little operation on this tassel. So just have to be careful to hold your strands together, your petals I mean. And I'm just going to take this little tarnished gold bead cap away, and if you can see, there's a little hole at the top of these, and I'm just going to open that up. Let me leave it together, and if you can see, they only just do a little loop just as a stopper on the inside of those. I just paused because I realized that the 18 gauge wire is just going to be too thick, and I want to add a bead embellishment since I have opened this up and I don't want to struggle with it. So I just paused, and I actually, in my scrap bag, had a little piece of 20 gauge wire that already had a simple loop on the end. Okay, just bring that down to the loop, and then I'm going to thread on this little filigree bead cap. Oh, that 20 gauge wire is so much better. And then I have this little bead left over from last month's Potomac treasure box, and I like it because it's purple, and I didn't have as much purple in this little pattern. There was that little flower, and then there were those little 2-hole beads. So I'm going to do that, and the power of a seed bead. One little single 6/0 frosted pink seed bead, and I have this beautiful little customized dangle for my bracelet, and I just want to make sure my beads are down nice and tight over that little bead cap, and I'm going to fluff my little flower tassel. And let me see, I can do this with my bent chain nose pliers. Just put a little bend in there and trim away that end, and take my pliers and just roll back. Get my simple loop in there lined up. It's so pretty and modified, and so I will take, just as I did on the rest of the piece, I will take my permalac coating and just brush this whole little filigree bead cap with this and let it dry, because these do tarnish. They're just a thin little base metal and they are beautiful, but this will really save it. So I will do that when I'm finished recording, and I'm going to use a jump ring, I think, you could attach the simple loop right to the bracelet, but I think that it will dangle a little bit more nicely if it is on a jump ring. So I had already made some extras of this little tiny jump ring and just had them at the ready. Just close that up really well. There we go. And that beautiful little detail is added to my bracelet, and I love it. I loved it before. I think it's a fun spring, summer, happy design, but now with that little extra pop of color on the end, it is just gorgeous. And I just can't believe how these things that I've had in my stash for so long just all came together in this piece. Look at that. It's beautiful. And I thank you so much for watching and for choosing my video today. It was lovely to have you spend time with me, and I hope everyone is safe and well and having fun on their beading mats. And don't forget to email me pictures of the little furry-faced assistants that are around your work tables. The community is loving seeing all the pictures. Have fun, everybody. Ciao. See you in the next video.